Cape Town. We can drink this. All right. Now, that to me is classic Glenmorangie. It's one of the most consistent whiskies I've tasted in a long time. And it is fresh, it's lively, and it sits right on top of your tongue. It's almost sort of a tickle. And that is typical flavors of, first of all, American oak cask, and very important, that very, very light, crisp, pure new make spirit that comes from using the tallest stills. Now what I want you to do is add a little bit of water. Now, before you add water, when I say a little bit, I mean a little bit. So, never, my rule of thumb is never add more water than you've got whiskey in your glass. I want you to look at the amount of whiskey in your glass and try and add half of the volume of the amount of whiskey in your glass. Okay?
I really want to do this. Wouldn't recommend it to.
Alright, and I want you to do exactly the same. Swirl it around a little bit. It's still sitting on the tongue, isn't it? We call that a lingering aftertaste. It's really nice, and it's very, very important. One of the key factors for a good quality single malt is it needs to stay in your palate for long periods of time. Now when you smell it, that fresh citrus zestiness has gone away and it's become a lot more subtle.
Tastes like a beer glass.
100%. And now when you taste it, now, creamy. That's pretty good. Yeah, I like that. Now, that is dangerous stuff. Because that is the kind of whiskey that, although I want to treat my Glenmorangie with the utmost respect, that's the kind of whiskey. When I've got a couple of mates around, just kind of open the bottle and the cork sort of disappears pretty quickly. Because you know you're just going to sit and sip that the whole night through. Really subtle, really soft.
Really finished.
That's Glenmorangie original. 10-year-old, single malt, first and second fill American oak casks, tallest stills in Scotland. That is it. It just sort of sits there. More towards the sides. 100%. It almost dries it out a little bit. You want to kind of go and look for it. And someone once said it's Moorish. Yeah. Well, what the water will do is it will just break open those alcohol molecules and it allows the softer, more volatile flavors to come through.
Neil, is it fact as well to enjoy whiskey out of a glass like
Probably
this?
not, but okay.
Not.
To
Whiskey
enjoy?
out of a glass like this versus a tumbler, you just don't have the same
Well, the reason...
aromas or anything. This
Right.
is appropriate.
We got to differentiate between drinking and tasting. That's pretty key. When you want to drink a whiskey, you usually know what that whiskey tastes like, and you want to drink it because you enjoy that taste, and you're at a social environment where you feel like having a drink. Then a tumbler is pretty neat. I enjoy a really nice heavy base tumbler. I'm not too worried about having it rounded. As long as it's thin cut glass, a really nice tumbler is pretty good for me. When it comes to nosing and tasting scenario, we want to use a glass that concentrates the flavor to a central point. Yeah. So if you have a glass like that, all the flavors go out the sides, and you've got to work really hard to get in there. Where this one, it's a lot easier. All the flavors come right there. Really nice. So yeah.
What about when drinking whiskey, like socially, the water to whiskey ratio was like the best? Was that
That's entirely up to you. My rule of thumb is never more water than whiskey. I always want more whiskey in my glass than water. I once had a guy in Cape Town, actually at the Bastille Bar, had a Frenchman come in on a Saturday morning, and he ordered 2 whiskies, a malt and a blend, and I served him his malt whiskey neat and his blended whiskey on ice. And he got confused and he said, "Son, you just add ice to my malt whiskey." I said, no, sir, I would never do that, but can I offer you some water on the side? I said, "Yes, please." So I gave him one of these carafes of water, and he literally added a drop of water. And I walked away, and he said, "Come here." So as I went over, he looked at me and he said, "My father told me that you should never ever drink your whiskey without a little bit of water. But you should never ever drink your water without a little bit of whiskey." So it's entirely up to you. Certain whiskies accept different whiskey accept water differently. There's certain whiskies that really like water. They open up, they come at you. Like Glenmorangie Reuben really needs a little bit of water just to wake it up. Whereas the Lasanta, I really don't enjoy with water. You need that without water. Lasanta is very powerful. It's gutsy, it's big, it's spicy. As soon as you add water to that, it loses its personality. It loses everything that it's about. The big, gutsy whiskey. So you need to find your whiskey and then find how much water that whiskey enjoys. But it's entirely up to you. Less is more. Yes.
Some of the guys drinking whiskies, you said the ice is the no-no, obviously, but yeah, a lot of guys will take, you got your tumbler and you got like 2 or 3 tots inside there, and you put a single cube of ice inside there.
Yeah. So I'll tell you a story just now.
I mean, because that, in theory, I mean, it's obviously ice, it is water, and it's less than the volume of what you're doing. I mean, what is the theory with that?
I'll give you my theory on ice. Again, different whiskey, different amounts. I enjoy certain whiskies with 1 cube of ice because I enjoy it a little chilled. Ice will take away a certain amount of the alcohol. It will numb the alcohol.
Okay.
You have to excuse me, but I need to tell you this story because I started laughing at you. Purely because you know the person. And I won't tell everyone that it's your sister. I'm at this tasting last week, actually at this exact tasting last week. And this lady came up to me afterwards and said, "What about ice in whiskey? What's your theory on that?" I said, "Well, my father puts his chocolate in the freezer before he eats it." So I asked, I said, "What happens to chocolate when you put it in the freezer?" So he goes, "Well, it goes hard." I said, "Okay." "And it loses all its flavor." She turns around and she says, "Well, it depends on how long you keep it in your mouth for." And immediately she went red, I went red, and I just said, "That was great." So ice will do the same. If you drink white wine, and a classic example is a really nice wooded Chardonnay. People in South Africa, we tend to drink everything too cold. If you put it in the fridge for too long, you'll kill a lot of flavor. So, same thing. Ice, if the whiskey is too chilled, you'll kill a lot of flavor. And again, I'll use Lasanta as an example. If you add 2 blocks of ice to Glenmorangie Lasanta, within 10 seconds, it destroys the whiskey completely and it takes away all the flavor. You can't smell anything. it's pretty crazy.
That's true. I mean, hot food tastes better than cold.
Yeah.
So that's why they put a lot of ice with bells. So that's what you're saying.
100%.
Here in the southwest, it's much hotter.
Warmer. I agree with you 100%. We tend to drink things colder because we're in a warmer climate. If you go to Europe, summer or winter, if you go to Scotland in summer, it's like 3 degrees Celsius on a nice warm day. Well, no, it's probably like 9. But if you order a gin and tonic, and you don't specify that you would like your gin and tonic with ice, you don't get ice. And if you specify you want ice, you get 2 blocks of ice. In South Africa, if you order a gin and tonic on Saturday morning when it was minus 3 degrees Celsius, you get a full glass of ice whether you ask for it or not. That's why they drink warm beer in Europe. Yeah. But yeah, so 100%, our climate does influence our eating and drinking habits. Alright. So that's Morangie Original. It is going down very well, I can see that. But let's move on to our next whiskey. So I picked one of our extra matured range for tonight, and I picked it for, well, 2 reasons. One, it's the newest one in the core range, and 2, I think it's a pretty good lead up to where we're going with this tasting tonight. Now, just for those of you who don't know, that when we talk about the extra matured range, when we talk about maturation and whiskey as we know it today, that's really only been around since, well, bottling like this since about late 1950s, early 1960s. And everything was American oak casks, because it was cheaper than European oak casks. In 1994, Bill Lumsden, who's the whiskey maker at Glenmorangie, launched or released a whiskey called Glenmorangie Portwood Finish. And he was immediately awarded Innovator of the Year for that release. And what he did, first guy in the industry to do it, pioneered this process, was he took Glenmorangie out of an American oak cask, matured Glenmorangie. So Glenmorangie, once it's matured for 10 years, took it out of the American oak cask and transferred it into a European oak cask that had port in before. And he left it in there for 18 months. It changed color dramatically, immediately, and it changed flavor. So after 18 months, he took that out, and it was so fruity and sweet, and he took on all these lovely, soft sweetness from the port cask in a short period of time, just 18 months. Bottled it in 94, and in 96 he released a sherry wood finish, a burgundy wood finish, and a Madeira wood finish. So that was the core range, where a 10-year-old port, sherry, burgundy, Madeira, all American oak cask transferred into either port, sherry, burgundy, or Madeira for 18 months, and then we had an 18-year-old. Then at the end of 2004, beginning of 2005, something dramatic happened to the Glenmorangie distillery, in that it was a family-owned business since 1843, owned by the McDonald's, and it was sold or taken over by the world's largest luxury goods company called Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy. So Glenmorangie is now part of the international luxury goods company called LVMH. So we're part of the spirit and wine portfolio called Moet Hennessy and Louis Vuitton merged in 1987. And when it got taken over, they asked Bill Lumsden, who's still our whiskey maker, to re-look at this maturation process and come up with something new. He was happy with the port, he was happy with the sherry, kept those two. The Burgundy and Madeira cask that we got at the distillery wasn't as consistent and of high enough quality as he would have liked. So what we did is we secured a consignment of French Sauterne wine barriques. Now Sauterne wine is a really sweet dessert wine. It's a really sweet white wine from France. And these casks, your sherry butts and port pipes, about 500 or 600 liters big. These Sauterne butt or casks, barriques as we call them, 228 liters. Really nice and tiny. So your interaction between wood and whiskey is much greater. So what we do is we take Glenmorangie original or Glenmorangie 10-year-old out of your American oak cask and we transfer it into this sweet, honey-like Sauterne wine barrique. We leave it in there for 2 years. No age statement on the bottle as yet. It is, for argument's sake, it is a 12-year-old whiskey. There will be an age statement on it soon, but as I said earlier on, we don't want to focus on age, we want to focus on cask. So we've called this whiskey Glenmorangie